Hello everyone. Today we are going to cover a topic in computer science, SQL, under SQL, that is constraints. Okay, so this topic is not mentioned in your chapter, but we are going to learn this topic because it is very essential to write the SQLs. Okay, so the topic that we are going to see is SQL constraints. What do you understand by these constraints? As the name suggests, it is a kind of constraint or a restriction that you have to specify for the columns of your table. Okay, so constraints are usually the rules that you have to implement for your columns. Okay, when creating a table, you have to create these constraints. You have two options to include constraints, that is, while creating the table, and another option is to update or change the structure of the table using alter. Okay, so these are the two options that you can include your constraints into your column. So either using when you are creating the table, or you have to create the table and later when you want to add this constraint, you can do the alter to it. Okay, alter statement. So we have not learned about this creating, alter and all in detail, but when you are going to do that, we will be understanding in a better manner. Okay, fine. So that are two things that we have to include our constraints into our table. So while creating, how you can create a constraints, let's see that. So for time being, just know how to write a query to create a table. Okay, so the syntax is something like this: create the table and give a name for your table. Okay, this name is user defined. That means whatever the name the user wants to give, he can include here. And then put a comma and write your first column of your table, that is column 1, and then write what kind of data type it has, and then write the constraints. Okay, this is how you include the constraints. It is not mandatory to include the constraint, but when you want to include the constraint, do mention it here. And then consider it is column 2 data type, whatever is column 2's data type. Again mention the constraint if you need any constraint here. If not, just skip this comma and then mention the other columns and then mention its data type. And if any constraints are available, do write that and then finish it off by a bracket, give a semicolon so that the statement gets terminated. This is how you have to write or create a table with a table name, its column, and then the data type, and then the constraint, whatever you want to mention for it. Okay, so next thing is constraint limits the type of the data that goes into your table. Okay, so we have to know what these constraints are and how it can be done. So usually constraints are done in the table level and the column level. Okay, so we have to know how these constraints are to be applied to your columns. So what are the different types of constraint that we will be seeing now? For example, we have different kinds of constraints. The first one that we are going to see here is types. So first one we can say it is not null. The first constraint is not null. The second one is primary key. Next one is check. Next one is default. And what are the uses of these constraints? Let's say not null, and one more is there, unique, which is left out here. Not null, unique, primary key, check, and default. These are the different types of constraints that you can include in your column. So what is the meaning of not null? Not null means your columns should not be left as null. It should have some value. For example, if you have a table, in that table you have some roll number of a student. So the roll number should not be left null. Okay, so in that case, you can include this not null constraint to your column. Next thing is unique. Unique make sure that all the values of your columns are different. Repeated values are not used. Okay, that is the use of unique constraint. And next thing is primary key. Primary key means which uniquely identifies any row. For example, the combination of not null and unique makes a primary key. That means all the values in your column should be different and also they are not null. Values, every value is different and not null value should be there. That means no row should be having a null value. That is what a primary key is. Primary key is used to uniquely identify the rows. Okay. Next is check. Check is used for specifying some kind of condition. That is the use of check. Then comes default. Default is used for giving a default value or already specified value to the columns of your table, so that if it doesn't have any value, it will enter that value as its value. Okay, for example, if the age of a student is to be entered by the user, but if the user doesn't enter, it is written as minimum value is 6. Okay, so in that case you can include that example, or any default value you can include for your column. Okay, one more constraint is there, that is foreign key, which is being left out here. Foreign key. What is the meaning of foreign key? Foreign key means some values are taken from some other table which are identified as primary key column, and those values are used in your other table. Then the primary key in the other table becomes a foreign key. That is what the use of foreign key. So if you mention foreign key constraint, what happens is, for example, consider this is one table of department. That means department 1 stands for CS department, department 2 stands for electronics department, 3 stands for IT department. Okay, this is department code, this is department name. Now when you create another table which consists of students, in that table details of students are entered, where roll number of the students are there and name of the students are there. Then comes their department. In that case, roll number 1, or you can say 311, name of the student is Sarah, and the department you have to enter. Now the department that you are going to take from here is either this department code. So this is primary key in its table. This is identified as primary key in its table. So in that case, you are taking the value from this department, that is which is already existing. So this department code is used in another table where the primary key becomes foreign key and the values are taken from here. So Sarah is in one department, that is CS. Now let the student be 322 and Sina is the name of the student. In that case, the student belongs to department 2. Okay, and again if you say Akshay, another student, he belongs to department 2 again. So these values are taken from some other table's primary key value. So this is identified as foreign key constraint. Okay, this is foreign key which will be taking only values from the other tables input. So these are the examples of types of constraints. Now let's see what are the constraints and how they are to be created. Okay, let's see the syntax. Now for the not null constraint, you can see here, create table, name of the table is given here. The persons is a table that consists of id column, which is int data type, and here constraint used is not null. You can see how it is used, not space null. Put a comma, give the next column name, that is last name. Name of this is varchar 255. So how many characters you can include maximum. And then it also has a not null constraint here, and here also not null for the first name. So these columns should not be left with the value null. Okay, age is int. In this case, no constraints are mentioned. This is how not null constraint has to be included in your table. Next one is unique. Unique, how to include unique? So follow the similar steps for all the table and columns. Then at the end you can write the word unique and then put in a bracket what all columns are followed. Include unique and the words, or sorry, all the columns to be included here in the bracket. Next is primary key. How to include a primary key is here. You can write all the columns and then include primary key at the end and write the column in that. So primary key, only one primary key will be there in one table, so only one column you can include here. And then for unique it's not mandatory. Okay, combination of not null and unique is primary key. Next one is foreign key. So how to write foreign key? It is quite different from other. So you can see create table, table name, orders. Orders is the name of the table. Order ID is the first column. Order number is the second column. Person ID is another column. Primary key is order ID in this case. Okay. So foreign key is person ID, which refers, foreign key is person ID, references person tables person ID. So if you have, consider you have persons table. Where is your persons table? This is your persons table. From the persons table you are referring to foreign key, the column references, another table, and it's that column which you are taking to use it. For example, foreign key, or you can just write in front of the column references the other table, that means the department table you are using there. So department table, department code. Okay, we will do practically these things so that it becomes clear for you how to use them. These are theory concepts. Next one is check. How to use check? So you can see here for the table persons, check age is greater than 18. For the age column, you have to include a condition where age should be greater than or equal to 18. In that case, you can enter, otherwise it will show an error. Next one is default. Default means it has a value, this value, where you don't have a city value entered by the users. We will be seeing how to write SQL queries in detail. Okay. Thank you for watching, and I would like you to subscribe to the channel, give a thumbs up and share it with your friends too, and do comment if you have doubts. Thank you for watching.